Good evening, and welcome to this week's Tuesday Night Talk, where I talk to you about a topic every Tuesday night. This week's topic is less of a topic and more of a question. The question is, what does it mean to be well educated? Now, this is a question that I've been pondering for a very long time. I was first posed this question a few years ago, and I don't think I've ever come to a satisfactory answer. So, I'm going to try and break it down today. This is, in some way, a spiritual successor to last week's episode, in that I posed the question in passing in relation to people using quotes to appear more educated than they really are. Now, what did I mean by that? Let me break it down for you. Actually, no. First, I'm going to break down what I'm not asking. I'm not asking what it means to be intelligent. I'm not asking what it means to be smart, what qualities make up a smart person, whether IQ points or problem-solving skills or any of that. No. What does it mean to be well-educated? Like I said, I've been mulling over this question for a while, and part of it is because the public school system, intentionally to an extent, but also unintentionally to a much larger extent than it really would like to admit, pushes the very linear path of college. I personally am going to college, but I recognize that that path is not for everyone, and I think most teachers and guidance counselors also recognize that and agree that college isn't the main path. And while they do present the alternatives, they still sell the four-year path as the path, which is kind of interesting to me because this does tie back into the question, what does it mean to be well educated? For most people, that means a college education. For centuries, really, that means having gone to school and studying the classics, right? In the Western sense, that would be studying philosophy, mathematics, the sciences, being able to speak languages beyond your native tongue. And I'm wondering if that definition still holds true. When I was younger, I wanted to do a lot of things. First I wanted to drive a train. I wanted to be a train conductor and engineer. After that, I wanted to be a builder. I wanted to be a carpenter. After that, I wanted to do so many things. But one of the things that I always aspired to was not just doing some things. If you go and read the biographies of a lot of the historical great thinkers, you will see one of their listed occupations is polymath. Now, what does that mean? It comes from the root poly, which means many, and math as in mathematics, but less mathematics in the sense of arithmetic, algebra, and calculus, and more so in the sense of math as a tool for understanding the world. Right? Sir Isaac Newton invented calculus to do physics, which I think is really fascinating, really cool tidbit there. But Sir Isaac Newton is, in many senses, the quintessential polymath. He invented basically all the sciences. Once you get into high school and into your general ed for college, you'll realize how much of the things you're learning were invented by just a few dudes, Sir Isaac Newton being one of them. I always had aspired to the classical thinkers of Greece, those philosophers, Plato, Socrates, all those different schools of thought, and I really thought it was fascinating that they could be paid to think, right? Now, keep in mind, a lot of the things that we have now, a lot of the sciences and fields of study that we have weren't invented back then. So they had a I'm not going to say an easier time, but there was a lot more to invent and to discover back then. But that's still something that I somewhat aspire to. And I am going to college and I will be studying. I will continue my study through a master's, right? Keep going to school, keep sinking money into that. And part of that is because I still want to do the polymath route, study as many things as I can because a lot of the world fascinates me, right? And I'm wondering if college is the best path for that, right? Because college is the classic well-educated person, right? Think of the college graduate. They're very well composed. They're very crisp. They're well put together. They can rattle off facts. They can manipulate ideas and have deep conversations and debates. They're so well educated, right? They can quote people. They can rattle off facts and figures. They can call up all these great books that they've read and reference incredible people. But is that what we value? Is that what you value? It's to an extent what I value, but I'm not so sure if that's what it means to be well educated. I once took a philosophy class, and I do enjoy philosophy, but maybe not in the way that it's taught. What do I mean by that? When you take a philosophy class, you sit down, you read a book, and you read about the author, right? You read about this person's school of thought and how they viewed the world, right? You look at the world through their lens, through their experience, through their set of parameters. And well, it's great and all. I never really valued not. I'm not going to say I don't value other people's opinions because that's not true, but I didn't value their worldview as a way to view the world. I have always felt that a person should come to their own conclusions. They should live their life through their own experiences, and through that form a well-informed opinion, which leads me to one of my big points about being well-educated. A lot of people consider being well-educated to mean well-informed. A well-educated person is someone who is up to date with current events. They can talk politics. They can talk all the issues surrounding the world. You'll bring up some issue, and they'll of course have an opinion on it, and it'll be very well thought out, fairly well researched. They're well informed, right? Drawing back to the idea of quoting people. They're well informed. They can pull these things out their head and present a well made argument and then debate it. I really do value being able to debate and discuss, but I've always found that philosophy is better done on a hike with friends, right? I think you can learn more from just thinking, or not thinking, just talking. This kind of reminds me of the I believe it was ancient Persia. They had a tradition for their philosophers. They would debate and discuss an idea, in a public forum, and then they'd all go drinking, and then they'd discuss it again to see if it holds up. And I think that's a better take for philosophy. That's a better way to philosophize, right? And over the years, I think I've come to realize that I don't aspire to be a philosopher or a polymath as much as I once did. And more so, I'd like to redefine what it means to be well-educated. Because in a lot of people's mind, and I think my own as well, being well-educated has become synonymous with being intelligent, right? I'm I'm sure many people have heard from their teachers or from adults in their life when they were younger that you're so smart, but you don't apply yourself, right? Or, you know, or the classic phrase, book smart versus street smart, right? Um, that's that's a good place to start for, I think, separating being intelligent and well informed. Being intelligent and smart is something that's, I'm not going to say innate because it's not. I'm a firm believer in the idea of nurture, right? In the nature versus nurture debate, I believe in nurture. You can teach yourself to be smart and intelligent, right? You have that desire for learning. You have that drive, that curiosity, right? I very value curiosity. But I think at some point in our society, we stopped rewarding curiosity and instead rewarding the presentation of, of seemed intelligence, right? That's what I'm gonna kind of consider to be well educated, right? A well educated person has gone through the motions. They've got the grades, or they've gotten the grades. They've, taken all the tests. They've written all the papers and the speeches, and they've completed it. They've achieved it, right? They've done it. I am well educated. Look at my degrees, look at my qualifications, and here listen to me talk. Whereas I think that a well educated person should be someone who is curious as opposed to content with going through the motions, if you know what I mean. There's that divide that has formed where I don't think there should have been a divide, right? But if well educated means to have, gone through the process, been put through the machine, your nose put down to the grindstone, and then spit out, what does it mean to be curious, right? What does it mean to have wonder? What does it mean to have that desire to learn when that's not what's being rewarded by the system? Ooh, big scary air quotes, the system. I'm not going to air all my gripes on the education system. Maybe that'll be another episode. I gotta quit teasing these. I really do. But the idea of being well educated, being something that's more exterior, more exothermic, something that you present as opposed to something that you are on the inside, is rather unfortunate, because I mean, by definition, well educated means to be educated. Well, you can't define a word with itself, but it means to have gone through that process. But at some point on the path to being well educated, you kind of lose the plot. You lose the why you started your education in the first place, right? Is to learn to grow, right? Yes, it's one thing to memorize those facts and figures, but it's another thing to learn those skills that learning those facts and figures taught you, right? A lot of schools have a language requirement, right? In order to go through them, right? And a lot of people, I don't need to learn to be able to speak Spanish or French or Chinese or what have you, but that skill is very valuable, right? Well educated means that, hey, I can speak fluent French. Oui, oui, mon ami, je m'appelle Lafayette, right? But when you are so focused on that product, that result of, say, French fluency, if we're keeping this example, you've lost the point of why you started. Yeah, maybe you did want to learn French so you can, I don't know, do that one verse from Hamilton, you can be Lafayette. But there's also the benefit of being able to learn how to speak French, right? Not for the sake of learning French, but for the sake of learning French, which is a really, you might say that's a difference without, or a distinction without a difference, but no, I'd say it is a difference without a distinction, unfortunately. But what am I saying with all this? What does it mean to be well educated? Well, right now, it means that you have gone through the system, right? You have educated yourself. Or rather, you have been educated. You have, become a product, right? You have learned all the things that you needed to learn. You did all the things that you needed to do, and now you are a well-educated person, right? There's a phrase. Oh God, at the risk of sounding like a hypocrite, here's a quote. I forget who said it, but education is not the filling of a vessel; it's the kindling of a flame, right? I gotta go look that up. But when you are well educated, that is something that you are, something that you achieve, rather than something that you keep doing, right? I'm a firm supporter of lifelong education. I got milk today. That is, you never stop learning and growing, and yes, it sounds kind of cringe, like, oh, I'm not, I don't know all the things that there are to know. No one will ever know the things, that they don't know, but, oh, I know just enough to know that I don't know everything. The one thing I know is that I don't know anything. More quotes. But when you fill the vessel, right, you aren't kindling the flame. It's really good quote, fire, water, opposites, what have you. But when you become well educated, you are no longer educating yourself. Yes, during the process, you lose that curiosity to some extent. I mean, depending on how much of a grade grubber you are. But when you finally get there, wherever there is, whether it be a bachelor's or a third PhD, once you get there, you are no longer going there. And I think to be well educated means to have stopped learning. And I think that everyone should not strive to not be well educated, because again, it's really good to be knowledgeable about things, to be well informed, but not be focused on that status quo of I am well educated. People should be focusing on the process. The journey isn't it's not the destination, it's the journey, it's how you get there. But maybe don't have a destination. Just go, just learn, keep learning. If that's the one takeaway you have from this rant, is that no one is ever finished. Keep going, keep learning, keep that curiosity. The world is a fantastic place. Fantastic in the sense that it's beautiful, it's mesmerizing, it's amazing, but fantastic as in it's sometimes hard to wrap your head around. And take advantage of that. Look out the window and just be captivated by wonder. Be overcome with awe. Instead of being focused on achieving the ambiguous, arbitrary status of well-educated, just look at something and wonder instead, and kindle that flame of curiosity in you. Thank you. I've been El Berry Boy, and this has been this week's Tuesday Night Talk.